right, it is 6:30 in Readfield, Maine. Please stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening to everyone who is joining us here. I want to say in studio and at home this evening. Select Board Member Catherine Woodson will be joining us via Zoom, and so we will be following our online meeting procedure when it comes to voting and things of that nature. So I just wanted to make sure everyone is reminded of that. We begin with the minutes of item 23065, the select board minutes from December 12th, 2022. We got these via email. I wondered if there were any changes or any submissions, or let's approve.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes as
right.
presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded by Carol, moved by Sean to accept the minutes of December 12th, 2022. Is there any further discussion? Everyone present in favor? Very good. Catherine, in affirmative?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And
Item,
just sorry before you move it.
please.
Did you say Angelica's taking notes from?
So I just Angelica had a commitment tonight, and she'll be here like 10 minutes late.
Okay.
She will be taking minutes. She'll use the video for the first
Yeah,
part.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
wanted
No worries.
Yeah.
No worries.
to
No,
know.
it's a good
I was just making sure
Yeah.
to be extra,
Thank you, Sean.
extra audible.
Procedural Keegan. 23066 are items 25 through 28. These are our warrants. And as I best remember, these were split up between a couple reviewers. Our first is 25 and 26 from Steve G. Andrews.
Oh, it is. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Oh, yes. It looks like it's on page 7 of the packet for a total of $75,360.47.
Right in here. I think it's this one. Maybe it's one.
March 25 and 26.
Yes, and so
We're working on paper right now.
and so
Oh, no
I-
worries. Yes, sir. Roger.
I unfortunately I took full responsibility for
Oh,
I
no
saw
worries.
it in Eric's notes, like, oh, Carol's taking over. I'm like, great, I'm off the hook.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize we split them. So I
That's
am
all right.
not off
You
the
know,
hook.
we're all
So
used to everything.
that is just like bad work on my part. So so the warrant this time around, there's two of them, 25 and 26, and 25 is for total of $75,360.47. And that is relatively small compared to what we've been having, because there is,
Looks like 27 and 28 coming next.
yes,
Make up.
that's I think where they're going to really get us, because there it says we have like the RSU and all that. Yes. So this is strictly for things like our regular maintenance and salaries.
Mhm.
So a few things on the comprehensive plan update in there, a little cost for that, but not much. And so that's $75,360.47. And then the second part of the warrant is payroll, and that is $33,798.20 out of that 75,000.
All right.
So that's what we got.
25 and 26, very simple.
They are.
Nothing too big. It's rare that we get a warrant that is relatively compact.
I know. I was looking at that last Friday. I'm like, where is, how come that we're not spending very much money? It's like,
I would entertain a motion unless there are questions.
I'll make a motion to accept warrant 25 and 26 as stated.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept warrants 25 and 26 for the amount of $75,360.47. Is there any further discussion? All right, everyone present? Good. And Catherine?
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right. Then we come to warrants 27 and 28, which is robust. It looks like, Sean, you reviewed the state fees. And I wondered if it says public review is required following prior approval. Eric is here. So warrants 27 and 28, Eric. Yes, who reviewed those? It doesn't say.
Catherine did, and
Catherine
but
did.
then I also did and signed off on them.
Okay, yes, okay.
I have them both here if you guys have any detailed questions.
Oh, no, I just wanted to make sure there weren't any questions here. Obviously, in this one, it looks like Catherine, Catherine doesn't have to speak about this. Does anyone else have anything?
I was just gonna
ordinary?
point out warrant
Yeah.
27 is 392,437 and some change.
Mhm.
Couple things in there was Scott Horn, our first installment for Winter Roads, 44,800 and some dollars. Gorell Palmer Consultants was just shy of $1,000. That's, I guess, the sidewalk engineers. And some library books totaling 400. Were the only ones that stood out at all of something that's just not repeating. There was a small $3,024 in state fees, which was 27A. And warrant 28 is payroll at 21,595, totaling for both warrant 27 and 28, $404,033.58.
I'll make a motion to approve warrants 27 and 28 and the amount mentioned.
I will second that motion.
To move and second to accept the warrant 27 and 28 for $414,033.58. Is there any further discussion? All in favor at present? Good. And Catherine,
Yes.
thank you very much. That brings us to the end of our warrant. We now move to select board communications. We have 20 minutes to be dedicated to this. First up are select board communications. If any members of the select board would like to address the public or talk about something, now is your chance.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a special thanks to those town staff working in maintenance and those over at the transfer station through the last couple of weeks of weird weather that we've had and extra special circumstances. And I know that none of that was really easy, and but nothing seemed to have big hitches, and at least not that I heard of. So I was really pleased, and I'm glad we've seen most things seem to be back to fixed status at this point already, which is fantastic. So yeah.
I have a comment.
Please go ahead, Catherine.
First of all, after a conversation I had with Eric earlier today, Eric, would you please pass along Sean's congratulations to those people mentioned?
Absolutely.
We've had some feedback from the public that comments and things that the select board discusses don't always get sent off to the people that we made them about or were speaking of, and so they don't ever really know because they weren't watching our meeting. So that's where that came from. And then I just wanted to update everybody that the 14 Christmas baskets for the town employees were all delivered, and I gave them to them during a staff training day in December, and they were very receptive. And I've heard personally directly from 3 employees with how pleased they were with receiving those gifts from all of us. So I just wanted to share that.
Anyone else? Very well. We move now to staff reports. We have 5 minutes dedicated to the town manager's report and the treasurer's report of December. Eric?
Okay, thanks, Dennis. You've already touched on a couple of things that I had here, so this is great. The employee meeting was on December 15th. It was an opportunity for training, but also to show some appreciation for the staff. So I want to thank the select board on behalf of the staff for the gift baskets as well. And I want to thank Catherine for attending to personally relay the appreciation that the select board has for the staff. So that was very nice to have her there and to make some statements to that effect. Employee evaluations will be happening in January and February. We do those annually. The work on the comprehensive plan is continuing as a top priority. That's something that we have later on in the agenda, but it's a very worthwhile effort. I think that it's time well spent to focus in on that, especially over the next 6 months as we get to complete that project. The town has received a compelling proposal from Fidium Fiber for community-wide broadband fiber network that would be, it's going to be considered by the broadband committee in the next couple weeks. And I'm hoping the select board can take a look at it later in January. But it's a proposal that checks a lot of the boxes for private ownership, a minimal investment by the town, and providing full fiber and some options for residents to maybe choose between multiple service levels without a lot of investment from the town. So it's an interesting proposal. It involves the town working with them to pursue a grant with the Maine Connectivity Authority. But I think it's a really interesting option for us to look at because it is a much lower threshold financially, and it would take away some of the concerns about public ownership. So that's really interesting. The holiday hours for the town on Monday, January 16th, Martin Luther King Day, we will be closed, the library as well, closed that day. And then our last chance rabies clinic is on Wednesday, January 11th, starting at 5:00 p.m. Register your dogs, get them vaccinated. Be reminded that penalties start accruing at the end of the month. So please come in, register your dogs. It's been active lately. Don't miss out on the opportunity to save that money. Moving on to roads, traffic, parking, and safety. Winter road plowing and treatment has been limited, but well performed over the past month. I was just talking with Steve about how wonderful the running conditions are in town. And
That's not
it's,
fun.
he said it was a shame, but also a nice treat. But it's not been a normal winter, and we'll talk about more about that later. But we do have GPS tracking devices in all of the plow trucks, so we have a very good idea of what's happening and when. It's really interesting to see how everything's mobilized and how work is being performed and at what hours of the night. I mean, this is work that happens very often at 2 a.m. So it's good to document that. The storm before Christmas caused a significant amount of road damage. Town maintenance staff spent several days identifying damage, coordinating work, and performing light duty work where they were able to. Cushing Construction, however, performed a majority of the heavy excavation work, culvert repair, culvert replacement, and we are looking at right around $38,000 right now in contracted service costs. So this is emergency work. There's a fair chance that we will be able to get reimbursement for a large portion, if not all of it, from the state of Maine and perhaps the federal government if we meet the threshold. But we've submitted our paperwork to contribute to that effort. So there's a fair chance that that's going to be covered. If not, we do have operating budget to cover it. We just would have preferred to have used it on other projects. So we're waiting on a right-of-way survey from the Maine DOT to proceed with any preliminary layout options for the Church Road sidewalk. We need to know where that right-of-way is so we can identify the scope, because we don't want to be doing work outside of the right-of-way. We want to do work within the road area that's owned by the town of Readfield, or the rights that we have in that area. And then roadwork RFPs will need to be issued in January for spring and summer projects. So that's a timeline that I have that I need to stick to. And the last item I have is transfer station. Dave Morrow has been quite busy there. We have permanent underground power installed at the attendant booth, which was a big improvement for us. We had a heavy gauge extension cord basically running, and we had to plow around it. People had to drive over it. So this is a nice change and improvement. And then we also have lighting installed over the hoppers to help with that area. And we're preparing for installation of the lighting at the brush and bulky waste area. We have a few little hangups there, but that should be done within 2 to 4 weeks on that area. But that's my report for operations and general administrative items. Any questions?
Yes.
Catherine, hang on 1 second. Carol?
No
I don't know that I saw the manager's report or
It's on the, if you go to the select board page on the Readfield website.
yeah, that's what I'm at.
You may need to
Go
refresh
there.
it.
You might have to refresh it if you didn't.
Okay, never mind then. Okay.
Sorry.
That's right. I usually kind of look at it, but I couldn't find it.
Catherine, go ahead.
Eric, a big thank you for having the lighting getting done over the brush pile. I'll be sure to announce that at the solid waste meeting this week.
You're very welcome. Dave Morrow is doing the work. He is recovering from a medical procedure, so that's why it's taking a little bit longer, but we're fine giving him the time to do that. So, yeah.
Great. And then my other question is, do we still have the RFPs in the works for the library work, or has maintenance been able to get started on any of that upstairs?
They haven't been able to get started on it yet, but we have been talking about it as winter work, which I think now that we're past the flooding and the washouts, we should be able to get them inside the buildings doing work a bit more over the next couple of weeks. So that is part of the plan for the winter, is to get going on that work.
Okay, and the RFP is just waiting still?
The RFP for the more significant work, the egress work and all that still needs to go out, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have something else, Carol? Or?
I guess it was just the GPS thing
Mm.
with the roads. What was the reason for that? To monitor where they are and what they're doing? And this is a new thing.
Yeah,
right?
it's new. Well, that's part of it. A big part of it is data collection. So if we know that over the course of a winter, an average winter, if we look at 3 years, for example, that the trucks are on the road 200 hours per season, then we can help understand what the costs of providing that service are for the contractors, and potentially for us if we chose to look at that as an option. It's hard to make a good decision without knowing what the costs are. So really it's data collection. I'm trying not to look at it as a big brother type of tool. But it's really nice to know that when there's a storm and you feel like the trucks should be out, you can look at the map and say, oh yeah, they're all out. They're just at different parts of town. They're just not in front of my house. So it does have value there too.
So you literally, do you get to sit at home during storms and watch where the trucks are?
Oh yeah. I watched Willie Nelson go right by my house. And
I have to tell you, I would love that. It's kind of like slow TV in a really good way.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like watching the plane when you're flying.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, we're getting closer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would really, truly enjoy that.
Yeah, well, I can
Can I
share
come
it
over
with,
sometime?
I can share some of the information with the board. I did ask, we don't have the option of putting any of that stuff on the website. And I think that's probably okay.
Yeah.
It's
probably
a good
idea. I would just like to watch it sometime just for
No.
fun.
So, yeah,
We've been on Eric's Road 4 times already today.
yeah.
I'm just asking, did the town pay for the GPS units?
We are, yeah, we're paying a
Okay.
monthly, I think it's $18 or $20 a month per each. So basically $100 a month for the season. So $600 a year, something like that.
And we voted on that already.
We did, yeah, we did. Yeah, but in my view, it's really good data. And it'll be worth it when we try to negotiate a contract. We can say, I don't see why your fuel bill is this high, because you, on average, you're only doing X number of hours and, that type of thing.
Got it.
Yeah. Yep. It can help
And I think,
negotiations.
and unfortunately, I have to say, I think this winter is sort of it's a weird way to start collecting your data. It's a weird baseline.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah.
Great question, Carol. Thank you very much. Anybody else for Eric's town manager report? Then we'll transition into the treasurer's report. Eric, if you feel ready.
Sure. Yeah. Month of December, we're 50% of the way through the year. I'll be quick on this one. I'll just say that we had no unusual activity in the check reconciliation through the end of the month. We did, when you look at the journal summary, you will see some returned checks, but those were for addressing some accounting issues. For example, we had a check that was issued to Maine Municipal Employees Health Trust that it should have been issued to Maine Municipal Association. Just little issues like that. And then we had a couple that were lost in the mail that we had to reissue. So a little bit of odd stuff there, but nothing extraordinary. The audit process is going well. The budget process is full on. We've got a meeting this week, this Wednesday on the 11th and also on the 25th. So 2 budget committee meetings coming up. Those are open to the public. We have Zoom links. And I do want to report that if you want to subscribe to e-alerts on the town website, we now have the budget committee agendas as an option, like the select board agendas. Before it was just the documents, and we didn't flag those very much. But now with the agenda, folks can get a really good idea of what's happening and when.
Yeah, and those, just to sort of, and I just want to make sure in inserts of information, those, when you look at those agendas, it may seem a little bit like putting together a stereo. But the way that those departments in town are broken down into 3 separate areas. One area includes this, and this, and then you can see another area that's this, and this. So while it may seem like they have so much to look at, it's cut, I think, sort of into nice little chunks. So as you look at those documents, I saw those earlier, and I thought it was a really cool thing to see. So
Good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and so otherwise, we're halfway through the year, and it looks like we're halfway through the year. We have a few little anomalies on the year-to-date activity, in part because in fiscal year 2022, we borrowed money and received the funds for bonds. And in FY23, the current fiscal year, we're expending some of those. So it looked like we had a big bump of revenue last year compared to this year. And it looks like we're spending way more this year than we did last year. But it really all balances out to just how things show up in the accounting. And that's pretty much it. I don't have anything extraordinary to report, or even, as Steve would say, nothing even a little bit boring. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Are there any questions about the town manager, the treasurer? Excellent. Thank you very much. The boards, committees, commissions, and departments, we have 5 minutes set aside for that. Board and committee minutes. Did everyone get a chance? Were there any? I didn't.
Yeah, those also, I've tried to break those out so that it's not such a huge packet, but I keep forgetting to put them up on the website. So
Gotcha.
I'm going to make a note right now to put those up on the
Okay.
website.
So those are not there. That I wasn't going crazy with. So I just
Nope,
wanna make
nope.
sure, but we appreciate you getting those. Well done. And recognize, this is a part of this, Eric, is to recognize the contributions of Steve Monsulik to the Readfield Enterprise Committee, First Park, and the town of Readfield. Do you want to explain a little bit about that?
Well, sure. So Steve was one of the first folks in town to really look at economic development. He was an active business person. And I came in later in his involvement with the town, but he's been with First Park for a very long time, helping to make it so that it's profitable
For the first time?
for the first time in a very long time. So he had a big role in that. I had the pleasure of working with him on the Readfield Enterprise Committee, giving loans to local businesses, small businesses. It's a loss to the community. Like I said, I worked with him. I didn't know him personally very much, but I certainly respected him and his contributions to the town of Readfield.
And I would like to add to that
Please,
as well, because I
absolutely,
did know Steve personally for an extended period of time. And I looked up to him. I considered him to be just a model of what you would like parents to be and community-minded, civic-minded people to be. He was so generous. He ran Kenso Lumber for the longest time, and he was always super helpful to people in town and would bend over backwards to give people breaks if they needed it and help them out. He was super generous with his time with kids. He was a great, great supporter of kids. There are many things, my ski team, but there are other places where he would just drive his panel truck down to the fire department for a bottle drive and fill it up. And then he'd drive out to Mount Vernon with us and unload it. And just, he was an amazing guy. He did a ton of stuff. And he was also just a great parent. He had a couple of great kids who went to Maranacook, and he and his wife have been like just absolute champions in terms of supporting kids. So when we say the town of Readfield, I think his contributions to the town of Readfield go beyond just the official contributions to the business aspect. I want to make sure I mention that.
I just have to say, I agree. We were big fans of Kenso Lumber early in our endeavors, and he was a good problem solver. We were do-it-yourselfers, and he always had great advice, very convenient, and just a really good businessman, just a good person.
I give him full credit for the fact that our house is still standing.
Ditto.
I think probably most DIYers in this town
Yeah.
probably have
Yeah.
Kenso Lumber to thank for many things.
Absolutely.
Us too. So yeah, many thanks.
Well, Thank you. Obviously, it's nice that we are able to recognize and to say thank you very much. So, if there is nothing else, then we will move to public communication. Members of the public may address the select board. If anyone in person, you guys want to address, it's your public time if you want. Sure, please, this is the time now. And if anyone online would like to also speak up, you can let us know that as well. If you would, please go to the podium and say your name, where you live, and what your favorite color is.
I'm Linnea Coons and I live on the corner of Fog Road and Sadie Dunn Road. And just wanted to say with the open space plan, I was reviewing it today and was pleased to see that the comment had been made that having scenic areas and vistas dependent on landowners for being maintained is problematic. And the existing plan, I think, lays out the problems very clearly. The view that's shown of Maranacook Lake from Fog Road, you can't see the lake anymore. That's just the way it is for a variety of reasons. It's land protected by covenants, but covenants are unenforceable. And I just wanted to say I was very pleased that the open space plan had recognized that and to reiterate that it'd be good to keep that in mind. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Anyone? Oh, Bruce, you want to go ahead? Absolutely. Okay. Well, it's public. It's your time. It's your time.
I'm Bruce Hunter, live on Old Fairgrounds Road. In your role as treasurer, have we received a bill from Will Piper for fixing the roads at the town forest? You know,
Hyper.
he's the guy that was from anybody. It's probably going to be
I
$8,000 or $9,000 bill.
I'll have to look. I think we've paid everything that should have been paid. We did have a bill, I know from Leslie Pepper, that was paid for the work that he did on the road. I think Harold had been handling a bulk of the pass-through for the first round of work that had a few challenges. So, but I can look at that in detail.
I'll send an email to Teresa.
Yeah.
I just sent your treasurer tonight.
Yeah. No, I'd have to look back. So will Teresa.
All right, we'll send it back out to our friends online. We'll give you one last opportunity for public comment. Eric, the item that's included about the day camp, do we want to, do we want to mention that? Do we want to say it's included?
I can speak quickly on that. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So a lot of the things on the agenda tonight actually flow together. Open space, recreation, kids, idea about having a kids youth program for the summers was brought up by Greg Leinbach, who's a member of the recreation committee. And he came in and talked to me about it last week, and it was exciting and interesting. And I think a real positive prospect being self-funding and providing services that we need for the kids in town. In any event, we talked about wanting to get that idea out there because there are some time constraints that we might need to look at. Talking with Greg more, it does seem like the best option would be to get a full kind of readout from the rec board and then address it at the January 23rd select board meeting. But the idea here was just to put the idea out there and say, hey, this is here. We want to consider it in the future. And we have someone who's very passionate about moving it forward, which is, as you know, is always important to finding success in projects like this. So.
I would also mention that the ending of this proposed camp happens during Heritage Days. Ta-da!
The what?
Heritage Days, 2023.
But what did you start that sentence with?
The proposed end of this
Oh.
camp, August 11th, is also Heritage Days. Excellent. So that's just part of public comment. It's been submitted.
Yep.
If this is not on the agenda, but it is in the packet as part of the public comment. So there's no need. We're not. I just want to make sure everybody knows we're not saying we're doing this or anything.
Okay, but if we do, I'd love to hear Grant. He's very passionate about it. So I'm
Yeah,
hoping
he
he
will
would.
be here.
Okay.
Yeah, he'll be here
I
next week. He said he
promise
could come for
you,
5 minutes today. I said, we're not there yet. The idea is just to get it out there, and it'll be
He's
much more
fired up.
valuable later on, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, that is it for public comment. And I make sure that it is. We have nothing in the chat either. Okay, so we're clear all the way. Then we move to item new business. 2367 is discuss the comprehensive plan update process. It's very exciting. All sorts of stuff going on. Eric,
Yeah,
tell me
thanks.
about what I got to my mailbox.
Yeah, well, so we've been really trying to increase outreach and public engagement. And I think that we put a few things together and had hopefully a pretty effective communication go out to every door direct mail. That's included in your packet for reference. But for anybody that's not aware, we are taking public comment. We do have an active public engagement process that continues quite a bit of work up to this point. In your packets also, in addition to that mailer, is a summary of all the work that's been done. We've had so far over the past 3 years working through COVID to try to push this stuff forward and a few other challenges. We have had many meetings, taken several administrative steps to try to make sure that we have the right people engaged and the right resources behind this project. Yeah, so we've had 18 committee meetings held and 6 planned to go forward for this process. We've had 6 different public outreach activities, and we're going to have more going forward. We've had 1 public hearing, and we're going to have 4 planned over the next few months between now and town meeting vote. We have collected over 100 now of the long form surveys and over, I think, probably 60 now of the short surveys, 8 business surveys. So that community outreach has been pretty effective. We've also mailed out, as we noted, 939 mailings to the households in the town of Readfield, which I think hopefully, even if people don't pick one thing to do, that they'll at least be aware of what's going on and they can understand that we're offering engagement opportunities and that we're really actively seeking input and contributions from the public for these projects. In addition to what we've already requested from the boards and committees in town, we're trying to reach out to many diverse user groups. So in this schedule, you can see we're about 2/3 of the way through, and everything that's marked in red are the things that have yet to be done. And so I want to point out a couple of really important dates. First, January 28th at 10 o'clock in the morning here at the town office, we're having a public hearing. And I had a great meeting with some representatives from the comp plan committee last week to go over that and get the agenda put together and some scheduling. We're going to have support from KV Cog on that. And it's going to be a great opportunity for people to come in and talk about their vision for the town of Readfield and any specific ideas they want to see addressed in the comprehensive plan. So I'm just really excited that we're getting towards the last few steps of this process. I'm proud of the work that's been done so far under challenging circumstances. And I really look forward to hearing more from the public. The surveys we've had to date, over 160, I noted, a lot of those include long, open-ended questions. And it's been really interesting to see what people have to say and what their priorities are and the things they're concerned about. And there's always a little bit of polarity, but for the most part, there are really solid constructive comments coming back. And we've got an open space discussed later on in the agenda here. The only thing more popular than open space in the town of Readfield right now is the fire department. And the fire department is always, every town, with rare exception, the most well-supported, gets the most votes at town meeting. But it's been just really interesting to see how supportive our community is of our natural environment, our quality of life, and those things that we're talking about later in the meeting. So that's my summary of the process to date. And if you have any questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, we can move on.
It sounds great. And as a member of the comprehensive plan, I just want to say, all of this is true. The meetings have taken such a great direction. I have such strong confidence in the process. Before, I was a little nervous. I'm going to say that. I think the publicly people knew that. But I'm really, really amazed at the way that KB Cog has sort of taken up the mantle and really done a great job. Everybody, and especially Eric is busting it. So take the survey. If you're watching this, take the survey.
Absolutely.
Readfieldmaine.org and on the Facebook page of the town of Readfield. Any other questions about that?
I have a question.
Please, Catherine.
Eric, did you say the every door direct mailing has already gone out?
Yes.
Did you include the Readfield end of 04349, which is the Kentstill area?
Yes. Did they not deliver?
I have not gotten it.
Okay, I'll have to,
I haven't seen it either.
okay. Well,
So,
What?
Yeah.
It's in our packet. I got one.
oh, well, yeah, so the mailing, the direct mail, we rely on the post office to deliver to every address in town. So I'll just leave it there.
Gotcha.
we have a PO box, so I imagine it would be pretty easy for them to.
Yeah, well, maybe they didn't do the PO box. Catherine, are you a PO box or are you a,
I'm a post office box, and you have to ask for that. It's a separate region when you do the every door direct mailing.
well, I'm thinking it sounds like they
It's
might
not
not
a
have delivered to any of the PO boxes, which might be an oversight on my part because I assumed that the every door direct mail went to every
Right.
box, every address, but I will check on that. And if not, we'll send some more out.
Okay, yeah, there are different regions in each town, and so I think Readfield has 2 regions, and the third that are street addresses, and then the third one is the post office. And that's true in all towns, so thank you for checking on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Excellent. Thank you very much. It's I'm glad we were able to get to this. I'm very excited about that. Next up, we move to our next item of new business, which is to item 23068, discuss the annual town manager evaluation. This is just basically going to be a little bit of a discussion. We're not settling anything, but tonight what I want to do is just go through the process. It's on page 22 and 23 in your packet, and also 24, 22, 23, 24. And it just basically outlines what exactly we are doing for the process of annual review for Eric. And the idea is we're supposed to do this at a certain time, but when we're going to change that and just make sure that it makes more sense to do this in line with this schedule. So that's one of the reasons why we're doing that now. The most important information for me is down at the bottom of page 23 in your packet. It involves the 3 components of people that will be involved, 4 components, the one next one on the page. But the employees all have a vested interest in this. Board, committee, and commission chairs all have a vested interest in this. Major vendors and interlocal partners. So when we talk to folks, the Horn folks, how was it to get those GPS things installed and how it was working with Eric? And then another component is the public. So all of those components work, and we as select board members help facilitate that getting information from those components. I just wanted to give a little bit of overview. Eric, I don't know if it's weird for you to talk about your own review, but that's, if I missed anything in the process, please let me know.
Yeah, no, Dennis, you didn't really. It's a comprehensive review. I think it's appropriate, necessary, and I find it very helpful to hear in more detail from the board areas where I can improve, areas where you think I'm doing well. So it's a valuable process. I appreciate the feedback from the public, from the board, and from the staff and the vendors. So it's a good process all around. and I'm looking forward to it.
It's referred to as a 360-degree evaluation. So it's informative and all of this. We're not assigning anything tonight. We're just basically going over this. Just know that this is happening. We're also mentioning it to the public. This is happening. If you want to be involved in this process, to have feedback, if you have dealt with Eric as part of the public or any of those other components, this is your opportunity. It's a really neat chance.
Dennis, when you
when
say
does-
this is your opportunity, right? So like
Yeah.
for the public, for example, I just need to
Mhm.
understand this myself. It says, the comments are accepted with the following notice. Like, how do people get that notice in, like, is that mailed to people? Do they have to request it from the town office? How do they get it?
Sure. Eric, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so what we've typically done is we put it out on the town website and the town Facebook page and put public notices in the usual places. So the usual places are the town office and the 2 post offices. So we can't reach everybody all the time, but we take a good stab at reaching as many people as
I'll put it
possible.
on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
So if people want to make that comment, is there a way for them to be able to do it online if they wanted, or do they have to come in and get a?
They can do it online. Typically what we do is the select board would assign a person to accept those comments so that you can compile them and
I've done
then
that in the past.
present
I've
them.
done the
Yeah.
public aspect, and so
Yep.
people know that if you want to if you have any public comment, you want to send me an email about Eric's performance, send it to dprice@readfieldmaine.org, and I take those and we share that in an executive session that allows us to speak about personnel matters.
And what's the time frame for getting that to happen then?
We're looking at the next soon, right?
Well,
next
usually,
soon.
yeah. You've got a
Which
couple, you've
means-
got a couple options. I think that the most responsible option would be to put it out there for a couple weeks and then start collecting responses. And I'd say the first meeting in February would be the time when we'd want to discuss the feedback that's been received. So give people 2 or 3 weeks to get it in, give a week or so for the board to consolidate that stuff and share it amongst yourselves, and then move forward. So what I'll do is I'll be drafting that notice, very similar to what is there, and also one for the vendors and also one for the staff, and then we'll distribute those, and the feedback will go to folks. So I guess, Dennis, it might be good
We should assign those.
to assign somebody
Yeah,
to
you're
work
absolutely
with the
right.
vendors and to assign someone to work with the staff. I will tell you, both vendors and staff are a little bit, they kind of hedge a little bit. So you might not get a high response rate, but we're trying to find ways to encourage participation.
Right,
So,
so each of the 4 components that you see there, there's usually a select board, sort of what I would call a contact for each one of those, a sort of point person. The first component are employees, and basically you would either accept feedback from the employees, you would be the point person for that, the town employees would get your information. Is there any member of the select board that would like to deal with those employees? Or be the point person?
I'm happy to do whichever.
Okay, Sean, why don't you do that? You'll be on the employees. Thank you. The next component are board, committee, and commission chairs. Anybody feel torn?
I was
Carol,
gonna
do you have
say
a
I'll
favorite?
do vendors and
Okay, let's
local
do Carol,
partners.
do vendors.
You don't mind?
No.
You had the face of someone who had something you really
Yes,
preferred, so that's why I
please,
waited. So
absolutely.
if you do that, then I'll do the board chairs and stuff. That's fine.
All right.
we'll work with
And you're
staff to
gonna
make
do
sure
the
you
board
have.
chairs? I think that's
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
I think that's a great.
That's the most well-paid position.
It is,
That's what I thought.
absolutely.
Good, just checking.
You get paid in Monopoly money. And then that's for, and since, Catherine, do you have any desire to be one? I like doing the public one just because I manage the Facebook page and it's easy for me to send it out there and gather, but it doesn't have to be me. Catherine, any thought? Dennis will do that. Dennis will be the public. All right, you're breaking up.
She's almost to Bangor.
Talk to me, Goose. Yeah. I'll do the public. All right, that sounds good. So, Sean, you have the employees. Carol, you have the vendors and interlocals. Steve, you are board committees, commission chairs, and I will do the public.
Now, do we then put the word out to all of those folks ourselves, or is that done and then we are the contact?
Publicizing is not up, that's not our part.
But
What
we are
we
just
do
the
is we
collectors.
collect.
Okay.
And we sort of, when it comes time to have our executive session, we can kind of explain, well, some of the employees said that Eric smells like garlic. Well, that would be who presents that, whoever did the employees.
And we'll have staff support. So I'll have Teresa reach out to you
Okay.
folks to talk about what resources might be available. She can provide a list of usual vendors that we reach out to. She can provide the list of board and committee chairs, all that stuff. So, yeah.
How
Yep.
would we know if we have received some of those?
If they are mailed in, they're put in our box.
Check the
If there are
box.
emails, I think they get sent to us.
Trust direct.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would
get-
go direct to your
yeah,
email. Yep.
Yeah, they'll come right to our email. And it'll say, Dennis Price evaluation of Eric, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, thanks for putting all that work in.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we know what we're doing, and that will
Don't
be
think that's
reflected in the minutes. All right, so our next item of new business, 23069, is to discuss select board approaches to the open space policy and an update to the open space plan. We have 20 minutes set aside for this. And I guess, Eric, my question would be, let's talk a little bit about how we should go about having this discussion.
Sure. Yeah. So we've had a number of issues come forward in the last couple of years that relate to open space broadly. The select board for the last several years has had open space and recreation as some of their top priorities. Conservation, all of those things have been very important. We've started to budget towards conservation and open space. And over the past couple of years have really began to refocus and invest in a reserve account that can be used for open space purposes, acquisition, things. We discussed it a little bit at the last meeting. We had an interesting discussion on it, I think. And then the other thing that's been happening is the more we get into the comprehensive plan, the more we see that we have just a tremendous community interest in open space and the uses of that open space. And beyond that, we have several very active committees in town: conservation, trails, recreation, and even the age-friendly committee that's kind of delved into this area because of the connections that they have. And so one of the things that the select board typically does is set broad policy goals around these processes, how they all work together. And I guess the other thing that I wanted to mention is that the cemetery committee and cemeteries in general are a very valuable piece of our open space that we sometimes don't necessarily look at as being part of that discussion. But I think that we're starting to realize that we've heard from them that they see themselves as not just a place for somber remembrance, which it is, but a place for people to be and to enjoy some of the most beautiful places in Readfield. You think about Readfield Corner and up by Plains Road, the cemetery up there, and some of the ones that are in the woods that are just idyllic. All of these things are part of open space. And so the purpose with some of this discussion was to introduce the board to some of the planning documents that exist and just to provide a little bit of the feedback that we've received. The survey responses that I put in the packet represent 100 responses, which isn't huge, but that's still a pretty sizable bit of feedback from the public. So the board has a lot of, I guess, leeway in how you want to pursue this, how you want to engage the public, the committees in carrying forward this mission and this purpose that seems to be ingrained in the town of Readfield for a very long time, but renewed focus as we go through the comp plan. And so that's kind of where we are.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have a comment. Catherine Woodson, are you with us?
I think we lost her. Oh,
Okay.
she's there.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
She did disappear though.
Okay, I just want to make sure she
Not
was
sure
trying to
she's
send me
back.
a comment. So, yeah, Eric, I agree with all of this. It's so Catherine sent me a motion to read, and she wants to make this motion even though she can't be here. And it's to make a motion to direct the following advisory committees of the town of Readfield to work jointly in updating the current open space plan dated 2006 with a particular focus on these areas. 1, inclusion of all town-owned properties. 2, all information verified to be current. And 3, active and passive recreation on all towns. The committees being age-friendly, cemetery, conservation, recreation, and trails. And planning work will begin with the workshop at the select board meeting on the 23rd of January, with each committee having a representative present to begin planning for the update work, which can begin following town meeting approval of the comprehensive plan.
What was the start of that proposal?
Trust me, it's a lot.
Catherine's good at putting together
Yeah,
multi-part.
it basically is saying that we want to make sure, we want to conjoin and let the select board direction be to work together for these following advisory committees: age-friendly, cemetery, conservation, recreation, and trails.
But to do what with the different parcels or the passive and the,
Doesn't say, it just says to work jointly in updating the current open space plan. I think really it's an inclusion of all of the stakeholders in updating the open space plan.
I'd second that motion.
All right. It's been moved and seconded, so now we will open it up for discussion about this. If there's any confusion about this, I don't know if it makes sense to repeat it, but it basically, we want to include all town-owned properties, information be verified, and current information, and to include active and passive recreation on all town lands. It makes sense.
in what form are we
have-
doing? That's the part I wanted you to repeat, is what form is that
So-
going to be in?
Go ahead.
It's an update of the 2009 open space plan. We have a wonderful document that already exists, and actually, it's one of the things I want to talk about a little bit later, but I
know,
just
30
included the cover
something.
page
I'm
and the table of contents. So we have a document in place that's already established a lot of, and Linnea pointed out, done a very good job of getting us to a certain point. But, it's 13 years out of date. And we want to, just as we are updating our comprehensive plan, update our open space plan in light of where we are as a community, right? And so that plan was originally developed with a significant amount of effort from the Conservation Commission, but also with a professional consultant. And that's something I think it's important for the board to consider if we would like to look at that direction, or perhaps if we might want to just work with our boards and committees, because the first effort was funded in part with donations from LL Bean and other sources. So we had other money kind of getting this started. But I think we have a great plan. I know the Conservation Commission and others, including some of the committees that you mentioned, were actively involved in putting this together. But it's definitely a different time and a different situation than we had back in 2009.
The timing with the comprehensive plan also seems appropriate.
Yeah, well, so that was one of my concerns, is that we didn't want to get too far ahead on working on the open space plan until we had really wrapped up the significant planning effort underway with the comprehensive plan. I'm hoping that information and feedback can be put back into the open space plan. We can have all the survey results in, we can have all the public comment. But like I said, what I've seen has been extraordinary support for open space in Readfield already. So I think that it's a timely thing to do.
So the surveys that are in here, that's from 2006?
No, these are the summary of 100 of the first 100 responses we've had to the 2022-23
The
update,
comprehensive plan? Okay.
comprehensive plan update.
Okay.
Which
Took me a second too, and then I realized like, oh, no, I answered those questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Okay, I just, my whole thing with open space, and do we know what properties we've acquired through this process up until now? Do we, like, is there a list you can put together of where they
There's
are
a
and what
great
we're doing with
list
it?
and a map. But the map needs updating, the list needs updating. A lot of things that were originally protected by easement have now transitioned to protection by ownership. And they've added properties. So we're aware of a lot of that change. It just needs to be cataloged, documented, consolidated. And a lot of it's just, as Catherine said, I think, or mentioned in her motion, it's taking that inventory. And we have a good start, but we need to really make sure we have everything in there, including all the town properties that in addition to the ones that are held by our partners, Kennebec Land Trust and New England Forest, all of those groups.
Well, I didn't want to really sound redundant because Eric said a lot of things had my hand up to say there, but I think the reason I was quick to second that motion was it's all space. We're not stuck talking about one particular parcel, project, area. And also I think for me, talking about different uses, whether it's passive, whether it's, active engagement of a space. And I think it really ties together well with our comp plan conversation we've had for the last few years, but also one of the goals of the select board that we discussed at the beginning of the year is really understanding where we're at in town with our lands, our uses, and not just certain projects. So I think it seems like a smart thing to engage. I would only caution that we make sure that any other sort of, like, I know the snowmobile club's not an official town club, but I think it'd be great to get there like they did previously. I would hate to see them ruled out because they're not a town advisory committee, but I think that might be an amendment I would propose.
Yeah, well, and the Historical Society could be there as well. I know that they're active with the fairgrounds property, so that's another partner we should consider including. Yeah,
People can choose not to comment, right? I mean, you can
they
always
do all the
invite
time, Sean.
committees, and they might choose not to advise.
My, again, only thing with open space is it, as you mentioned, started with seed money from LL Bean. And then the town, somewhere along the line, was putting money towards it. And then I thought I saw in like the projections a couple of meetings ago from the past years through the 5-year projection. Was it previously 10 or 20,000 a year?
The year before last was 10, and this year we put in 50.
I saw that
Yeah.
gigantic jump, and that's where I'm like, $50,000 a year for property for use, like it's going to do something towards something for the town of Readfield, some specific use. I totally can comprehend that. $50,000 a year is a gigantic. How did we get to that figure? And did that get voted on as a specific figure jump, or?
It was Article 17 in the warrant.
But it was lumped in with the library and the fire department in like just a list of about a dozen other things. There was nothing about, do you approve the increase from $20,000 a year to $50,000 a year for open space?
Yeah, I don't.
It was
I don't
in
know
a
if that has to be
gigantic
in.
list with other very important town, and I don't think that's an appropriate way
Well, it
to
passed.
double,
I'm sorry, I was just remembering about it. It passed, and so, I mean, it must.
because it
there
was in
an
a
explanation.
giant list of other things just called
I don't know
open
if that's
space,
the
and I
reason it
think
passed,
that's an
but-
appropriate,
Sure.
inappropriate way
any
to
questions?
double.
I'll just jump in and
expense.
I'll just jump in and say that to your point, Carol, on occasion, the board will break out individual items, but 95% of the time, we classify items in groups because we already have a 2-page town meeting warrant, and it would be 6 pages or 7 pages or 8 pages if we put every one individual. So that's a discussion that you would have with the budget process about what articles and what items, how that permutation works. So I definitely see your point.
But this discussion,
but it's
right,
pretty common to do it that way, I guess. Yeah.
but this discussion, this motion is not about money. It's about a plan and an understanding of what we have and how we could protect, engage, change, develop,
Yeah.
protect. I've said protect.
I'd say
I'm just
that-
going to say protect
I'd say that
again,
you're mostly right with that, Sean, but it really is about money because
but it's
one of the,
not, it's not the actual spending of money,
it's not,
It
that's not the
is
discussion
part
tonight,
of
but it's a big
the
part of
whole.
it. Yeah.
but not with that. This advisory committee is not going to spend money on a particular project.
No, they wouldn't,
Or
but
they're
they
not
may,
going out
they-
and going to
yeah.
buy a chunk of land tomorrow.
But that's the problem. There's not a specific use for 50,000. Okay,
Yeah, but those are,
Okay,
I'm saying, though,
Sean,
you're talking about a
let me-
separate
let me
conversation
finish.
though than this.
there are people struggling right now. I don't know. Okay, we have a large population of seniors on fixed incomes. We don't have a large tax base with businesses. A gigantic increase like that in one budget line, where's that coming from? Are you telling all these people that are trying to figure out how to
I don't know how
spend
other
for
people
heating?
voted though, Carol. This is
Listen,
old though.
listen.
You
Hang
keep
on,
bringing
hang
us
on,
back
hang
to
on,
this.
Sean,
hang
can
on,
I
hang on,
speak?
hang on. We're not arguing.
Can I
Okay.
just finish what I'm trying to
I want to
say?
just point out that this is about the open space plan and the direction of moving forward. I don't want to get sidetracked as a point of order in terms of the agenda. We're talking about the open space plan. So I just wanna
Which
keep
has a
us-
large
I just-
dollar increase this
but
year.
That's already. that's
Okay,
already-
I'll take it up with people myself.
It's a moot
Well,
point.
can
Thank
I
you.
add one point, Dennis?
Please.
I think that one of the values of having a plan like this is it helps identify, if not specific parcels, but then specific areas that we might want to look at. And it can set up a process for prioritizing that investment if the community decides they want to make that investment, which is where the funding piece comes in. And I guess I definitely hear your concerns. I think we all do about the cost. But one of the things that the town of Readfield has traditionally been very, very committed to is investing in things like this. And the budget committee, the Conservation Commission, the select board in large part, and the feedback we've had from residents who've taken the surveys has been very, very supportive of spending that money. As we know, we found it with broadband. Some people say they got 75% approval, one meeting, and then we hit peak gas and it failed 45, 55 or something. People will decide how they feel at any given moment at the ballot. And so I think that it's going to be a big, important discussion when we talk about that $50,000 number. But this plan is only going to help us if we do decide to spend that money, spend it better. And also to help prioritize some of those areas that we want to look at. Because, you mentioned the old folks in town or the older seniors. A lot of those folks enjoy recreating in town with their grandkids. And that's what this is about. And again, we're all going to have to decide how we want to vote for it. But, that's kind of my take on it anyway, is that there's that balance between putting something in place to make good decisions and then deciding if we want to pay for it or not.
So my point exactly is, can I see what properties we've acquired with this plan since 2006? And what have we done with those properties? I understand if it's going for a park, if it's going for the beach, if it's going for the fairgrounds, if it's going for cemetery, but to buy a little piece of property to do nothing with, I have a feeling people have trouble grasping that expenditure to just hold on to it.
Well, I guess the
And-
simple way to put it is that
Because
you're
there's a
putting
lot
money
of
in the bank.
space for people to
Yeah.
just love this town.
Because we've had tremendous donations and generous people, 350 acres a few years ago that was just donated to the Kennebec Land Trust. We have some great donations in town, but as Linnea pointed out, we can't necessarily rely on just people's generosity to preserve what makes Readfield for a lot of people. And so I can tell you that we haven't purchased any properties in the past 10 years or 13 years since this plan was put into effect, because we didn't have any money to do it. We also didn't have necessarily anything fully identified. There are some opportunities coming up that would be just a tragedy to miss, Carlton Pond being one of them, which I know the Conservation Commission is talking about at their meeting. But this whole thing really is forward-looking. And it's about putting money in the bank so that if we can find a creative way to spend $50,000 to protect a $500,000 worth of property for forever, that's kind of the idea here, which isn't for everybody. We get that.
Okay, you saying we haven't done anything in 10 years. Okay, that's one answer that I was like, what have we done with it? I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
So, okay,
Yeah.
we haven't just willy-nilly gone
No,
nuts.
no,
Okay.
but we've made great strides, and some of the property that's been protected in town has been in part because we had this plan in place. It just didn't involve taxpayer dollars at that point.
And that's the difference.
That's the difference, yeah.
I just think that it feels like the purpose of updating the open space plan is to make it so that it is very transparent what we have. And so that people, when they're ready to vote for it, say, oh, I see what we have now. And do we want to add to that or not? It just, by updating the plan, we're just, I think, helping everybody make better decisions.
I'm sure people think we own the beach and the fairgrounds, maybe the forest. But outside of that, I wonder what land people in this town think we own.
Well, and the plan isn't necessarily just about ownership, it's about partnership.
Yeah.
And that's a really big piece
Yeah, right.
that it needs to be acknowledged, I think.
But we're a small town. Should we own lots of property? Our business is, we can't be everything to everybody. We have to take care of the people in our town. I mean,
And that's,
I don't argue with that. I don't argue that for a minute, Carol,
my
right?
God.
But what your question is, what do we have and what have we been done with, town money, if anything?
We
Right?
have to be good
And so-
stewards when we can.
But if we know what we have and know what people in town want, that makes it easier to be a good steward.
Excellent. What else?
we've got some conservation folks if they want to.
Please, go to the podium. You know this routine, Mr. J. Say your name, where you're from, favorite color.
Jerry Bly, 27 Giles Road, Blue.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Just a couple sort of random thoughts on this. One is that a tremendous amount has occurred since the last open space plan, but not involving town dollars. And I would say, there's a couple examples, but the town forest area, back when this plan was written, there was the town forest and the adjacent 100-acre KLT property, so about 200 acres of contiguous open space. Now there's about 1,000 acres of contiguous open space, or there will be shortly, involving other KLT lands, New England Forestry Foundation lands. So that's really a big difference, and something that should be taken into account. The recent easement that was put in place up at across from Jesse Lee Church on the solar property protects a view that was identified in that open space plan as being one of the most iconic views for the town to have. So I think there's real value there. Another point, just in the past couple of weeks, we were contacted by the Conservation Commission in Winthrop, which is embarking upon or thinking about embarking upon an open space plan. I don't think they have an existing one. And they asked, should we think about jointly doing anything? I don't have a real strong feeling on that. Want you to be aware of that. They were trying to raise some money for a consultant to help them do that. So just something to keep in mind. And obviously there's potential opportunities for regional, cooperation there. Does that mean we should jointly do an open space plan? I don't think it necessarily does, but something there. And, I think it is a worthwhile endeavor to bring together a range of interests on this. And I think there's an awareness that there's been a lot of conservation acquisition in town, and that has some great exciting opportunities associated with it. It also has some other implications for the town that I know Carol is concerned about. I think that's real and should be taken into account. I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Bruce?
Bruce Hunter, Old Fairgrounds Road. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Carol. And I'd like to think that the top priority for the town is to make sure that everybody's warm. And these are two different issues. And as long as there's enough money in the town's coffers to make sure that everybody's warm, everybody's fed. There's several food kitchens in town that provide food for people. I work for the one at the school, and I think that takes top priority. But these are separate issues, and so
Thank you, Bruce.
just want to say that.
Anyone online via Zoom? We'll take one last shot at this, and then we'll see if we can't wrap up. All right. Very well then. That brings us to the end of our new business, and we would like to we'd like to begin our public hearing for the community resilience. Do we need to end our first meeting? We need to adjourn our
Or
meeting.
just a workshop? No, I think or what was that? Was that a workshop?
Well, we made a motion.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
seconded.
Oh, that's right. We're
You
still
have a motion
discussing.
on the
Yes, we're still
table.
discussing. There's a motion on the floor. Sorry, I was getting ahead of myself. There's a motion on the floor, and basically, what that motion does is to direct advisory committees to work jointly in updating the current open space plan dated 2006. The idea of this focus on the areas of including all town-owned properties, all information verified and current, and also including active and passive recreation on all town lands. The committees that are involved, but not limited to, the age-friendly cemetery, conservation, recreation, and trails. We're going to have the planning will begin with the workshop at our next meeting, the 23rd of January, with each committee sending a representative to be present to begin planning for the update work, which can begin after the approval of the comprehensive plan revision. So if there's no further discussion,
I think
yes.
there was I guess an amendment informally to include groups like the Snowmobile Club.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, yep.
Then
Don't
I
wanna
would
leave
add
that out,
I would
yeah.
add that to the, not limited
think-
to.
I think I might have missed though that you said not to, you said the committees, but not, oh, you said something.
Not
Thank
limited-
you,
not
Jerry, who
limited
was
to.
listening a
Not
lot better
limited
than I
to,
am.
yes.
Yeah,
Including
not
but not
limited to.
limited
These are the ones, but not limited to.
So with that, I think that would cover that amendment.
That would have covered that amendment.
So I don't think
Okay.
we need to use that amendment.
Perfect.
That was just,
Perfect.
my
Yeah.
hearing's not as good as
Making sure.
Jerry's on the first time.
And if there's any other discussion, all in favor, please raise your hand. Good.
We've lost
And Catherine, is she no longer there?
No.
Then we will just assume she votes. She doesn't have a vote. Very well. Thank you all for that, for the select board, and thank you very much for your input. We appreciate it. This is a good thing for Readfield. Very well. We have voted. We have finished. Do we need to adjourn this meeting before the public hearing and workshop?
Nope, you can just
Okay.
roll right in.
Then let's roll into our public hearing. We are entering a public hearing for 30 minutes to discuss the community resilience in Readfield in relation to the Maine Community Resilience Partnership Community Action Grant. The select board has voted and approved our applying for this community resiliency grant of $50,000, I believe. And it is can be used in a number of different ways, some of which we've thought about, some of which we are opening during this public hearing to seeing how that works. Eric, would you like to add to that?
Sure. Well, first I'll say that we're doing this in partnership with KV Cog. This is another one of the programs they offer, resiliency, and just helping us find grant funds is a really big part of it. But I can't tell if they're on the screen or not, but I did invite Robin Stanicki and
Yes.
Olivia Kunesh.
Yes, Robin's there.
I'd prefer if Robin could give a summary of what she sees this program and this public hearing doing for the town. And I can talk a little bit more later about perhaps the resolution, the draft resolution that was put together, and some of the next steps. But really, this is the goal of this public hearing, is to help identify and kind of narrow down some of the things that our community thinks are important for us to focus on. Probably not an idling ordinance, as we discussed last time, but
Yeah.
but there are a lot of other areas that we could look at as a community. So Robin, do you want to make some comments?
Sure. Thanks, Eric. So as Eric described here briefly, the Community Resilience Partnership is a really great opportunity that KVCOG has been involved with for about the last year and a half. And basically, the premise of this builds on the State of Maine Climate Committee's publication of the Maine Won't Wait Climate Action Plan, which delved into a series of strategies that allow our state to meet certain benchmarks and goalposts over the next several years. And it also really looks at all of the different ways that different towns and cities, as we are different and we don't need idling policies, but how does climate change and the effects of this actually show up in our towns and cities? And it's something that I really support because there's oftentimes we have sweeping legislation or policies that are handed down at the state level that don't really fit with different communities and our characteristics and our varying needs. And so what this program does is it takes a town on a short journey to really understand, well, what are those needs that we have and what are those effects that we can trace back to changes in our environment. Eric and I have been working together to complete the enrollment process, which is a 3-part exercise that gets us to that point where we're looking at Readfield in several different areas and saying, okay, do we have or have we thought about these different types of scenarios or these different types of needs or populations and all of the different ways that we may experience changes in our environment. And enrolling in the partnership opens up a stream of funding that we can apply for and submit funding requests for a great number of different projects that Readfield has actually discussed, some of which have been discussed tonight. And it's quite broad. You know, we define climate effects in such a broad way that, you know, you think of broadband access as an activity that can mitigate climate effects if you don't have travel, for example, and that type of thing. So getting Readfield through the process would be a really great benefit for you guys, because then we can write a grant. We can spend up to $50,000 on a project that we would help you design. And if you found that it was beneficial to work with another town that is a neighbor, if there was a project that made sense to you both, we have a ceiling of $125,000 for a multi-town proposal. And you know, my thinking here is that, you know, regional work and which is obviously our calling at KV-COG, but regional work is really beneficial and looked at by the state favorably. So the ceiling is a little bit higher for that. But please let me know what questions you have. There are a lot of different projects that are sort of suggested as part of the program. But, you know, I tell our towns, you know, if you can trace your activity back to the way that you experience climate change, you've got it. So
All right.
please, what would you like to?
Thank you very much, Robin. We appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions for Robin in regards to the resiliency of our town or anything of that nature regarding this? It seems like a pretty self-explanatory item. I know that Eric has maybe talked about some things that may work for this, that could be possibilities
Yeah.
for this. Is that something you want to talk about?
Yeah, briefly. So we talked about the comprehensive plan a little bit earlier. We talked about select board goals and goal setting a little bit earlier. I started off this draft resolution that's kind of part of the program because it gives us a baseline commitment. But we have things that we're already looking at doing that are eligible for this, some of these funds. And two of the ones I see coming to the fore, and I'll mention a third briefly, but the first two would be the energy efficiency and building envelope items. So converting the town office LED lights to LED. We have a proposal right now from the same company that put together our street lights, LED, for probably around 20,000 to convert all the fixtures and to make everything LED. And that could be one really easy way for us to get funds to do the work and then just immediately start saving money because we'll be spending less on electricity. And the other that we've had and we actually batted around a little bit and pushed out were some of the older windows that we have, 30-year-old windows that are drafty and probably don't have argon in half of them anymore. And that building envelope with a review, we could likely have a significant portion of that replacement cost covered through a grant like this. So we right there could have, one building that could be immediately saving us money in heating costs and electric costs at no expense to the town, and also reaching these climate ideals, I guess, that are out there with this program. So there are real things that we could do. One of the others might be, if we wanted to look at trying to put some money towards buying out the lease on the EV that we have currently. But there's so many things out there that there's 5 or 6 different areas. And so it doesn't have to be something abstract or, as Robin said, it can fit our community. And I think that we've got some things right in hand that we can look at that are already, select board priorities. So.
Absolutely. And I think there's a way to be climate positive without, like doing what I call sort of like, things that are too far out there. You know what I mean? Like there's a way that you can be climate positive without, there's just ways to do it that I feel like are appropriate that sometimes are like, I don't know what you mean by some of these ideas, but especially when you read the list of some of the stuff, it was a little out there, but I think it's good that at least we know it. And I think we also, one of the biggest select board goals that we've talked about is being financially responsible and fiscally responsible, and to find a way to use $50,000 free dollars seems very fiscally responsible. So I like that.
I have to say, when I looked at this list of resolutions, I was exactly what you said, like, this is way out there, like reduce the impact of natural disasters. Watch threatening things to our natural ecosystems and agriculture. We don't have massive agriculture. I mean, a lot of this did not apply. So where did this list come from? It is out there, and a lot of it, can't this be like very simplified? Who drafted this?
Well, so this resolution, this is something that I put together based on the requirements for the program, as well as some of the priorities that established by the select board and the comprehensive plan. And so, I mean, for example, we don't have a lot of agriculture in town, but when we have drought conditions, the small farms that we do have can be severely impacted. So all this is saying is that we recognize and acknowledge that there are impacts like the $40,000 we just had to spend on a crazy rainstorm in January or end of December. There are impacts out there that affect our community, and we're wanting to take some action to address some of those.
Yeah, in my list, the list that I was talking about was this one that was in the packet about different sort of things, some of these ideas I felt like were kind of out there.
And
food
they
buffers
are.
some, yeah, so
Yeah,
like,
and some of those are, but I mean, having wells go dry in town, we've had issues with that 2 or 3 years ago. I remember it was a terrible summer. We had 5 or 6 people saying, hey, town office, can you help us?
But the $50,000, and there's nothing the town can do with that. So I get this overarching thing that you're saying about we've
Yeah.
got to get this money. This is the way it reads is the Green New Deal coming to Readfield. And because the verbiage is just way out there. So I'm uncomfortable with some of this. If you want me to sign that as this is our resolution to do these things.
Well,
Sure.
I don't think it's saying that we're going to do any of these things in particular, right?
The-
But some of the things that are in there are very concrete things like what Eric mentioned. If we get
Those
this grant, could we use this money? Well, I think the idea is you get the grant, right? And part of getting the grant is deciding at that what you're going to use this money for, right?
Okay, but resolutions that you want me to sign like this, when you can say, we want to make the town hall more energy efficient, that I can wrap our head around. We've already done LED lights. We already bought the vehicle, which I think we could probably have a discussion of is it getting its use, because I've been wanting to address that for a while. And we've also done the heat pumps. So we've made great strides. And if you want to say we want to further modernize our town hall, that's a great use for $50,000. Some of this stuff is, if that's what you have to sign off on to get this grant, I don't know. I think it's way out there.
Could I just?
go ahead, Robin, please.
So I apologize, just a point of clarification. When you say this list, are you talking about the list of 72 suggestions? Or
No,
are
I'm
you
talking
talking about
about
the draft of a resolution?
The resolution draft.
Okay, so I'm not sure, I didn't see that, but and I apologize. I think I'm gonna have to make sure that my presentations or any materials that I distribute don't give my communities the impression that by participating in the partnership, you're obligated to do anything you don't want to do. If you don't want to do anything that's too green, like too much, then don't do it. Don't write a grant for that. Just write a grant for what you want, take your money and go the other way. So there's no obligation to, have any sort of ideas that are sort of shoved down your throat. You know what I'm saying? The resolution simply says, we care about our environment and we're going to join the partnership because we want to do climate stuff. So like some of the language is important, but just don't include what doesn't make sense for Readfield, right? So
Right, and
I
that's just the
apologize if it seemed a little sort of pointed or maybe sort of pushy, but it's certainly not what we intended. You write the grant for what you want. And if you don't write a grant,
Right.
that's
And
your
are we
choice.
We're looking to make a motion to approve this.
Not tonight. I think that we are looking for some more public comment, public feedback. We don't have anybody here unless Lee wants to add something. But maybe
He
there's
apparently wants to be here for what he's supposed to be
Yeah, and
here,
maybe
so
there's something
okay.
online, but I will say that this draft resolution, I think about 6 or 7 of these are kind of required pieces, but there are some things that we can have some flexibility on. So I will look and see which ones are required for the program and which ones we
So
can be
we just have
flexible on.
3.
Yep.
They're just 3 required statements.
Okay, well, maybe we
Yeah.
can point those out right now
Can
and
you
we
point
can.
them out, Robin? Yeah. I'd love to
Yeah.
hear that.
I can
then we can
just
work
read
on
them
that.
out to you if you'd like.
Sure.
The required statements are that, and I'll just insert Readfield where it makes sense. Readfield has completed the self-assessment and looked at the list of community actions, so that paragraph, and you held a community workshop on specific date, which prioritized the following action areas. And so then you would write in there what your community said was most important to you. Then you say Readfield commits to participating in the partnership and supporting community leadership and reducing greenhouse gas emissions and increasing our town's resiliency to extreme weather and climate change impacts. So it doesn't say what they are, but my other communities have gone paragraph and paragraph more than that. Readfield designates a particular point person, so it could be Eric or someone else, to coordinate the planning, implementation, grant writing, those types of things. So this would be like the point of contact that I would continually access.
So Robin, you're saying that the 3 things in this draft resolution that are requirements are the very first one
Mhm.
and the last 2, right?
Mhm.
In the list.
In the list that she hasn't seen that.
Oh, she hasn't seen it.
Well,
I'm
she saw
sorry.
the draft that I had
Okay.
originally, but then I polished it up to put in the
You
packet.
polished
So
Got
we
it.
had
okay,
worked,
so
we'd worked on it and we actually took out some of the more
fluffy,
fluffy stuff.
whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it.
Already.
Granola,
I'm
as
trying
I
to
would
close
say.
the draft, yeah. But
You
yeah,
just
so
state
we
what
can-
you've done, who I would be, in contact with on a regular basis. And then the middle one is, that you support community leadership in doing climate change activities. So
So
there are more. You can do and write more as it makes sense for the town of Readfield. But really, those are the required ones.
okay. So this is the community workshop, right? Now, we're not getting a lot of community feedback on what our priorities are. So
So
would Eric be the lead person in helping us to develop the most priorities? Are you the person who would know the most? And
Well, I think that we want to continue to try to get more public input. I think it's great to have the select board feedback because that's essential. But we can try to do some outreach. We can try to post some stuff on Facebook again. We can really try to get at least some public feedback on it. And then we can, if we don't, we'll just proceed. But yeah, does that sound right, Robin? We want to try to get as much as we can.
we do. And Eric, you did some pre-work here by completing the checklist to go in and see, if you've had, certain plans or if anything is in your, your town history or documents or comp plans to go through that checklist. So that's already completed. The next thing you do is you look at that checklist and you say, okay, these are some of the things on that 72 actions that seem like crazy talk. And then here are some things that look really attractive. And then you match that up with some of the comments that you would have had with your community. And you use that to kind of workshop what you would write a grant for. Is there something compelling that came out of a workshop with the community members? Is there some compelling argument for an activity that came from doing this checklist and realizing, oh, we don't have this, and we realize that we would really like to have this. So it's an exercise really for towns, big or small, to be able to have a pointed conversation to say, if we had the 100-year flood, are our elderly residents protected? Where would they go? Those types of things. things that we say, oh, we'll get to it, or I've never had that conversation. So it's hard because it's designed for many communities to use this. And like anything, there's going to be some things that need to be customized. And so I think that this does that very well. So please lean on me for anything that I can do to help.
That sounds great. We're nearing the end of our workshop, but if you have more questions, please entertain those. We have about 5 minutes left.
Okay,
in
not so
this
much a
endeavor.
question, but just an observation that I think that when I look through the list of the, that giant long list of things, right? Clearly, it's meant to apply to a very wide range of possibilities. That sea level rise is not a particularly pertinent issue in Readfield, but in some places it would be.
Let's
But-
check with the chief.
I mean, I can think of right away, another thing that you mentioned, Eric, we talked about the $38,000 in road repair, right?
Yeah.
Could we identify areas in town where, wow, it looks like we're going to keep getting rainstorms like that. We got some culverts that are too small.
You need
You know, there's some
culverts.
Drainage that needs to be, that kind of thing.
Buy
I mean,
some
that's a-
culverts.
if you could use this grant to like size up some culverts and prevent a $38,000 road washout with a $2,000 culvert job, well, that's a good investment.
But we
Right.
just reduced the size of some of our culverts, did we not, in that
Uh,
road? Big,
Some driveway
I
culverts,
know.
but the issues we had weren't those culverts.
Okay.
The issues, and I mean, the issue was slush. I can't tell you, Scott Horn went out and
Yeah.
pushed a snowbank out of the middle of the road because we had so much water coming up because the slush had clogged the culvert. It lifted up the snowbank and dropped it in the middle
Well,
of
this
the
is the
road.
one on the Chase Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And someone called me about it. I said, what are they smoking? I said, how is this? There is no snow in this storm. It's all rain. And it was just that massive flood that pushed the water up. And so, yeah, but I think that we totally understand the point. And Robin, I want to thank you for helping to clarify all of this. I think that
The
we can and
72
will move
action
forward.
list is really just an idea generator for some people that kind of need to get that juice going. If there's something else that you can connect to A to B, let's write it up. You know what I'm saying?
So depleting your need for fossil fuels would always be a way to get back to B, I feel, and looking at this, right? I mean, that's helping when we look at a lot of the efficiency stuff that you've already mentioned. That would be a good starting point too. So I feel like we've got lots we can talk about. So I don't want to end it here either. So
No,
Well-
we have another opportunity. to
there'll be
talk.
another chance to.
I guess my thing is, the thing we have to sign off on is that you commit to support community leaderships in increasing leadership in like climate change impacts.
Resilience.
I'm for making these changes because it's fuel efficient and it's economically smart. I'm not sure I want to sign off because of climate change impacts. I'm not a believer, so to speak. So again, the verbiage is a little bit strong for my taste. But I would do it for its economic advantage.
Well, and it's a select board resolution. Not everybody has to agree or sign it.
I know.
I think that, and so I think that, we'll probably have one of those votes, but,
We will.
but that's okay. I think that, I do hope that the board would consider at least some of the other non-essential resolutions and see, those whereas lines and see if those fit with the town of Readfield. And I would like to have a draft resolution that we can sign that does identify some of the energy efficiency stuff and some of the erosion control measures and a few others that have been mentioned tonight and some of the feedback we get in the interim. I'll put that together in a revised draft resolution and try to make it as innocuous as possible. Although, I mean, and you should, Carol, this did come from the state of Maine governor's office. So no one's going to deny that it has a climate focus, but that's where the money's coming from. So,
Yeah, and I mean, Eric, I would encourage you to not make it totally innocuous. I don't see anything wrong with the one, like the fourth one up in our list here. Whereas the town of Readfield is prepared to demonstrate leadership in reducing energy use and increasing the resilience of people, infrastructure and businesses. That's not far out there. That's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
So I think we need to make sure that, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with taking a leadership position in saying that, yeah, you know what? The weather is changing. People probably have a role in that. What should we be doing about it?
Well, I'll try to
Not the
thread,
weather,
I'll
the
try
climate,
to
sorry.
thread the needle as best I
Thread the
can. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
fantastic. Thank you very much, Robin. We appreciate it.
Well, you have a great night now. Thank you so much for the invitation.
We certainly will. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. I'll be in touch soon.
Excellent. Great public hearing. Thank you very much. We now move to our emergency operations plan tabletop exercise. We have 30 minutes set aside for this, but I know we probably won't need it all. Chief Lee Mank is in the house, so to speak, to help us go through this. Oh, heavens, yes.
Are
Okay.
you getting the
Props.
tabletop? What are you doing?
Yeah, there's props involved here, folks. What this workshop is meant to do is to update the select board as well as the public about how we will handle if there were emergencies that came up. I guess other than that, Lee, you should take your honorary position at the podium. Talk to us a little bit about what we're doing. Oh, yeah, don't you worry. All right. Yeah. Rocking chair.
Getting old. All right, yeah. So it's that time of year again where we look at the Readfield's emergency operations plan. Gets us to go through it, change contact information, upgraded everything, update numbers. I think Eric's that been done yet?
That's been done. That was the last meeting. We actually queued up this for the specific discussion around, how we would walk through a disaster.
Yeah.
Say Church Road got blown out, instead of just having half of it gone, we had all of it gone, or something like that. So yeah, I think the idea is that we're just talking about that.
Those are little disasters.
Those are
It was a little disaster. That's right. That's
Little
right.
disaster. That's the name of my band.
If we go to emergency operations plan, that means something's really gone awry. 25 years ago, we had 3 inches of ice in this area. A lot of people without power. That's what the emergency operations plan is. Based on stuff like that. There's a couple of different scenarios. You can have disasters, localized events, which means I always pick on Kent's Hill, but Sampson Hall collapses. That'd be a localized event. Not to go on the climate change and all that, but weather lately in the past 20 years has changed a lot. So that becomes a regional emergency. That means we can be isolated, not be able to get from here to Winthrop or Augusta because trees down, power lines down. We see a lot of that. The week before Christmas with the wet snow, that was just as bad as the Christmas storm. Christmas storm generated a lot of financial hardship for us, I believe. The storm before that generated a lot of power outages. There was a lot of people in Readfield without power for, 12 hours. And so it was a regional thing going on. Every community around us were battling the same thing. CMP was out straight trying to rectify things. The Christmas Day storm, Christmas Eve storm, some towns see a lot of damage. We were borderline. We had a few events, but they're major events on Church Road. That was the worst I've seen that. Need bigger culverts up there. So if it's a localized disaster, train derails, CSX, I'm sure is going to start hauling more besides water and slurry like Pan Am did because they're a lot different company. So we're probably going to start seeing more hazardous materials on the rail. I don't know for a fact, but that would be a localized, if they start hauling around ammonia and stuff like that, which they very well could once they get the line up and going
Yep.
where they need to be. If a derailment happens and we're talking, something like that happens, it's a hazmat situation, it can affect a lot of people. So that's a localized thing. So we're gonna get a lot of help from like outside sources on that. We're gonna be able to reach out to Kennebec Emergency Management Agency, and get the IMAT team and everything like that. And when we wrote our emergency operations plan, it kind of focused on that. So we kept anybody in town government, we kind of, and that works for the town, we kind of pulled their job right to that emergency operations plan. So if the maintenance guys are doing maintenance, we're not going to have them doing financial stuff. So it just makes sense. And to get the select board, you guys are town government, you hold the chain to the purse basically for, because if something like that happens, there's going to be bills. So we need the main thing's keeping records, having you guys up to date on what would happen in a big thing like that, because it changes from everyday government to we're working on emergencies. So that changes the whole thing, because then you guys are working with the first responders and incident command. So we've all done, used to be ICS 800, and that was the whole point of you guys doing that. Now it's the G1. Has everybody done that?
We've got a couple. I think there's still a few that need to do the emergency training. But
Which is the video, right?
yeah, it's something you can take online. So, and I did ask Teresa to check on that. I think that we had three board members that still need to get that taken care of. But
And that kind of opens your eyes to what's going to happen. Like on the fire side of it, we set up an incident command. We're going to have a staging area if it's a large enough event. Eric's public information officer. So if it's a large event, I'll pick on Kensal again, Sampson Hall's down in the basement where, actively doing recovery and rescue missions. There's, the media, the way media is now, everybody's going to know, but we want to send out factual information. So at some point in that whole thing, we'd say, and it's usually when we change, because if we're up there, something like that, it's going to be a long-term event. So every operational period, which would be 8 to 12-hour sessions, depending on what type of work's going, we'd swap, and we'd all the commanders and different things would have a meeting. We'd set up press times. So we'd have a press conference and that way we're getting our message out, and it's coming from one guy or two guys, because probably Shannon Moss is going to be here on any of that stuff. So it's a unified command. So we'd set, because the media is going to be calling, they know how to get in touch with you, and they're going to be, so just having that plan, it's important, not to say anything, that we've got one person going out with the message. So that's a big part of that plan. If it's a localized event, we're gonna rely on a lot of help from Kennebec EMA. They've got tons of resources they can pull in. Hopefully we never have to utilize that. But unfortunately, what I think we're gonna see more of is, weather events where we're isolated. So then you guys on that plan, because it's pretty open the way it's written. It's not in stone. So it gives us leeway. So if we have, another ice storm, a 98 type thing go on, we all get here if we can, hopefully. The roads, we've got a lot, we have a heavy elderly population. People still sending in the emergency contact information?
Yeah, we got a few more updates, probably
Yeah.
2 or 3 new ones.
you know, so we get that, but no power, no phones. We're gonna have to go knock on doors. And so, yeah, you're select board members, but four-wheelers,
Yes.
you know, ice skates,
Baseball
jog down,
cleats,
you know,
baseball cleats.
Steve likes to run, so, I mean, so it'd be, we need to take care of our people. So if it's a long-term event, then we have to start thinking, what are we gonna do? Because not everybody's got a wood stove, not everybody's got a generator. So then we have to start thinking about that. So even though we don't have a, you know, an official shelter, we're gonna do something for the, you know, so we're gonna find, you know, places to put people to keep them warm. So it's just kind of
All hands on deck.
all hands on deck.
Yes, sir.
And we're gonna do what we need to do. And then me as a fire chief, I don't care, you know, the price, you know, it puts you in my shoes at that point, because I don't care what the cost is. I care about the people. And then we deal with the cost after. But record keeping's really important on stuff like that. And that's a lot of what's in that box.
Do we get to see?
Oh,
in
sure,
that
yeah.
box? I'm so curious.
So
What's in the
we
box?
did have to,
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun.
we got some new emergency operations kits.
I like it.
We didn't have them in the right spot. They were at spots where they weren't necessarily kept track of,
Okay.
or they weren't readily accessible.
Well, I like an action packer. So, you know, it's beautiful.
our approach. And now we have 3 kits. One is going to be here at the town office.
Yeah.
One will be at the fire station, will be essentially mobile, because it put on our mobile command trailer. And we will have one that will be at the transfer station, which is going to be on the side of town. So we can distribute geographically, but all these kits have the same thing in them. They're all identified, you know, for where they're supposed to be. A lot of this stuff is just tools for communication. We do have a copy of the plan, current and up to date, as Lee mentioned. We have maps.
Can we gather around?
Yes, go, absolutely.
Is there?
Gather.
Oh, yeah. Well, come on.
Is
Yeah.
it-
Come on.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen it
Let's
before,
check it
yeah.
out.
I'm
Go
not gonna
crazy.
upload the whole thing, but we
Yeah.
can have an idea of
That's
what-
it. Bill's zooming out.
I took the radio out of my office, but having communication, one of the biggest pieces and main focuses of this kit. Because we need to have radios, we need to have post-it notes, we need to have a bulletin board. This peel and stick driver is brilliant stuff. You put this on any surface.
Yeah.
To keep it white.
And the presentation immediately.
So the communication piece really is important. In the, so mentioned, you know, guys, so there's a radio in there. Who is gonna be on the other end of that radio? Who else has radios? And, you know, so there's the 3 boxes with 3 radios, right?
That radio's program has all our frequencies in it that we use. So if something happens, cell phones work for a while, and then it gets awful spotty out here because their batteries go dead up on the tower, and cell service pretty much is useless out here after half a dozen hours. So Eric obviously has a radio in the office most of the time, so somebody from the fire department, if it's big, is going to be calling the town manager. Hopefully we get them on the cell phone first. If it's a localized event, it's going to be cell phone. Hey, we need you to go there and we're going to be on that. Every kit has 1 radio on it just to get us started. We have numerous spare radios at the fire department. So, you know, if it's a localized event, you guys probably aren't going to need the radio, but if it's regional and we're on our own, if you're out knocking on doors, you're going to have a radio, because our radios are going to work, or should, in theory.
So my question is, so let's just say Eric's in Bermuda when this regional event happens, and I show up and there's a radio, and I pick up that radio and I go, I wonder how I use this. I wonder what frequencies they use, or is that a dumb question? Or
Nope.
is that?
Just get on it. It should be on Readfield, and just
I
say,
know it's on Readfield.
it should say right on the display, Readfield.
Come in over.
There we go.
So then it's just, it's just like, it's just like a walkie-talkie you had when you were a kid, right? They actually call them handy talkies, just like on emergency.
That's right.
Leave to assign someone to fill my shoes.
Right, just in case Dennis and everybody else was here. you
So,
look at me, I don't know how to use the-
If it hits the fan, either I'm gonna come down and talk to you guys, or my deputy chief, Mike Nolat, who's a deputy emergency management director, and knows all the stuff too, because I bore him with it every once in a
You guys
while.
are both in a half mile, we're good to go.
See, you're good. And, so we're gonna communicate. And I'm not sure, we probably ought to update the list of Winthrop, but
Yeah.
they're gonna call Eric, because I'm gonna, if something bad happens and it's localized, I'm gonna say, call my town manager, because I'm probably gonna be busy. Have him, have them open the emergency operations plan. And so he's gonna come down here and he's gonna start calling you guys.
Open the key. That's right.
Hey, boys and girls, it's time to go to work.
Yeah, time to go to work.
So we have, a lot of this is pretty basic. We have a lot of-
Are there snacks?
White violates markers, pens and pencils. We have,
Yeah. You thought they were Twizzlers? Were you looking for snacks?
Dude,
a lot of this stuff is just, it's almost all geared towards communication. We have a special generator capable electrical cords, so that we are running off the generator someplace because the town office is
Compromised.
compromised. Then we have that capacity. Basic things like flashlights, that masks and gloves, because we don't know what kinds of situation we might be.
Yeah.
Pathogenics.
Pathogenics, biological.
A lot of stuff we have stamps to help expedite paper processing. A lot of the stuff, like I said, really just comes down to these stakeholders. We do have vests.
That's a good idea.
That's communication, safety.
Can't hit me with that on.
That's a great way to start.
Eric, what would be nice eventually is to get vests, but get them labeled as to who you guys are.
We do have the ID tags. We just need someone that has a photo ID. So
You mean that copier downstairs doesn't do that?
I'll make
So big.
all tags, but it'd be nice to have on the back of those, and we've done it
Yeah, like
at the fire department that said command on them, which doesn't matter, but we could put, town office or something like that, so people, because we're gonna get people that have no idea, and at an emergency, everybody and their brothers wearing a reflective vest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Either that, or we get some pink polka dotted helmets or something.
Well, that's why we had that one year for Heritage Days, we had those bright orange hats that said, we love Heritage Days. Yellow hats. And that way I was just like, who do I see? It's like, see that dude with the bright yellow hat? Go talk to him.
Bright orange t-shirts.
It was wonderful. Mr. Lee, what more do we need to go through before we feel prepared to do this? It might be nice if you haven't taken the training, maybe if you don't know if you've taken it or not, contact Eric.
Yeah.
I thought we took it last year.
I think that you may have, Sean. I couldn't
And I feel
find
like
the
it was
full.
2 courses also, not just 1.
Well, if you took it, then that's great. That's only 2 of you. I think it's you, Carol and Steve that need to take it. But it's really simple. It's just a couple hours online. But you can always take more. I mean, that you could take hundreds of hours of training on this stuff if you wanted to.
Have they put the G101, G401 or whatever it is? Is that online available?
I
Yeah.
haven't seen that one online yet. They still
I
have the
still-
700 and 100 series
Yeah,
stuff
and-
though.
And I think just as elected town officials, I think now all you need is that, I think we talked last time. I probably could look at my text messages and tell you what it was, because I sent you
Yeah.
at the time, but there's
The
one
county
that you
was
need.
working on it.
I
but-
highly recommend everybody here take ICS 800.
ICS 800.
And that's definitely available online. If you go to, if you just type in ICS 800 online course, it'll bring right to it. So-
Eric, can you just send us all of them in case I?
Yeah, I'll send you the
imagining
list.
These two trainings, I think I did.
I think you did 100 and 700, Sean, but I'll send all three up, 100, 700, 800.
Does it?
ICS 800 course is available through FEMA's website.
You said Teresa would know if we have or not.
Well, I was working with her to try to identify the training logs, which we, you know, unless someone prints off a piece of paper and gives it to us, we don't necessarily have a full record, but
I'm pretty
we'll look
sure
at
that
those
G
three.
course is an
Yeah.
actual in-person course that you have to do.
Oh, the G one, yeah, and
The
that's why we were
G1.
waiting on the state, on the county to help us get that set up. But in the meantime, those ICS ones are easy to get to. But it's not a bad thing to take every year anyway, you know, it just keeps you fresh, so.
We're coming to the end of our time of the regular scheduled meeting, but I certainly don't want to end unless there is some other information. If somebody has some questions about this for Lee, please ask those. I don't want to end early without knowing where we stand on this, but I wanted to point that out. Anyone else?
Just one last point.
Yeah.
Lee mentioned the fact that we have additional resources. These kits and what we do here, that's just a very, very tiny bit, just a shoestring. We really will be relying on, as Lee said, other agencies heavily with a major disaster. So,
If it's localized, then.
Yeah.
If it's regional, we're on our own
Yeah.
for a few days.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor? Catherine, wherever you are.
That's right.
There we go.
she's watching.